Hey everybody, this is Gabe Hernandez with Comical Opinions, talking about an ICV2 article that came out yesterday, well, late yesterday, talking about the update to IDW. I know I've been doing a lot of IDW videos lately, but there's a good reason for that I'll get to towards the end. But I just want to keep up to date on what's going on with IDW. What they're doing is they're reporting a quarterly report, which ended, I believe, on July 31st, which was a little over a month ago. And the publisher just about broke even. Which sounds like great news. However, there's more to it than that, and it sounds good on paper, but unfortunately, the nuances of what went up and what went down make it not so great. So I'm just going to go over the article a little bit. I won't read it verbatim, but I think there's a lot in here to unpack, and we just kind of want to comment on where it goes, and we can talk a little bit about what it means for IDW's future. IDW Publishing reported a break-even performance for the quarter ending July 31st, which was about a month and a half ago, despite declines in the direct market sales. Now, direct market sales means monthly comic books. So remember that when you see that in this article, direct market sales means comic books. Our publishing team, to its great credit, pivoted quickly, aggressively, and successfully pursuing sales. And we're going to skip most of that, blah, blah, blah. In the book channel, sales of March, Beauty of Horror, coloring books, Lock and Key, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were noted as doing especially well. But that's about all that did well. The declines in direct market sales had two causes. Remember, direct market means monthly comic books. The quarter included several weeks in May of the shutdown from Diamond. So Diamond shut down where it basically didn't ship anything. That had a big impact. And since then, direct market volumes have not yet recovered to pre-pandemic levels. So even though Diamond is open back up and everybody is, for the most part, publishing at full strength, people are not buying the monthly comic books at the same rate and at the same levels as they were before the pandemic hit. So remember, that's that lag that we've talked about before, where even though everything opens back up or starts to open back up, it takes a while for people to get back into those spending habits. Some people will drop off permanently because they're just out of the habit of buying comics. Some people are in a financial bind because of the lockdown, and they don't have the disposable income to buy monthly comics. So you take those two things combined, and where the situation is not basically getting back to financial spending levels for the average consumer, yeah, just because Diamond's back open doesn't mean everything goes back to more normal. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. There's going to be a very significant lag time where it's going to take a long time for people to get back into spending habits, and they may never recover to pre-pandemic levels. IDW publishing sales for the quarter were 5.2 million, down slightly from the 5.3 in the year ago period. So same period last year, a little bit less. Because there were no new releases, there were no game sales in that quarter compared to 200,000 in the year ago. So IDW also makes games that are based off the same properties, and they basically weren't shipping anything, nothing at all. The break-even operating profits in publishing continue improving trends this year, which means they're going up. They're not making a lot of profit, but they are going up. The division had a rare quarterly profit of $100,000 in the quarter. Seed IDW Publishing ekes out quarterly profit, although it had a loss of $600,000 in Q2 and ending Q2. I think that's a typo there. The company is carrying its PPP loans as liabilities pending qualification for forgiveness. Now, this one you got to very carefully watch out for. PPP loans are basically the loans that companies could get from the government due to the lockdown. It was loans to hang on to their employees. Now, I've been through this with the church that I attend and the companies that I work with, and I work in local government, so that's also part of that as well. You have to go through very specific qualifications to make sure you get that forgiveness. If you miss something, or if your books are off by a little bit, and part of the qualification is making sure that you pay the employees even if they're not working, if they miss that, they're not going to qualify for the forgiveness. They could get hit pretty hard by that loan. So they have to be very careful about that and make sure all the finances are in order. The entertainment division, now here's the other part of IDW we talked about before. The entertainment division posted a $3.2 million loss. It delivered half of, now remember, when we talked about what's IDW, what is their financial strategy, and we've seen this in the financial reports that have come out recently. They're shifting away pretty much from the monthly comics. They're focusing on graphic novels and books through Scholastic and bookstores of the same properties. Like, let's take Ninja Turtles as an example. They're focusing on creating young adult kids books, scholastic kids books that are sold in bookstores, not the monthly comics. They're focusing on games and toys, not the monthly comics, and they're focusing on developing those properties into things like Netflix deals, television deals, things that are kind of in a broader entertainment sphere, more of the Hollywood type stuff, not on comics. They're shifting away from that by all accounts, looking at their financial strategy reports. So what are they saying here? This is the entertainment division, which is the part of IDW that's responsible for taking those properties and converting them into Netflix deals, television shows, movies, whatever the case may be. The entertainment division posted a $3.2 million loss. It delivered half of season 4 Winona Earp. Remember, we've talked about that before, where they had trouble, even though they've already been approved basically for a 5th season of Winona Earp, they were financially sort of unable to finish season 4. They may get back to it, but they kind of had to stop work, and they may not be able to afford to finish season 4, which is kind of rough, and booked the loss as a result. Brochure distribution company CTM, which is being sold but was still in the books as discontinued operations during that quarter, so they were trying to sell CTM, but it's still on their books, and they just, and because CTM can't afford to do business, they're having trouble getting it off the books. And the total of IDW Media Holdings was a $4.5 million loss. Among the steps the company is taking to improve results in its entertainment division is the way it acquires properties. So this is buying or licensing properties, like say they wanted, as a license, for example, G.I. Joe, or if they license Transformers, or if they license like Sonic the Hedgehog as an example, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that kind of sort of thing. Among the steps the company is taking to improve results in its entertainment division is the way it acquires properties. By combining property development for both publishing and entertainment, Veronica Brooks was recently promoted to Vice President of Creative Affairs, which will span both divisions. So again, they're not picking up Transformers just to publish a comic. Or they are, or they have in the past, but for new properties that they pick up, the intent is not to pick up a property so they can make a comic out of it. The intent is to pick up the property so they can make comics and books and Netflix deals and shows on Sci-Fi or the CW, or whatever channel wants to pick them up. There is no focus on doing one type of medium. It's spanning all across the mediums, publishing and entertainment. And most of that publishing is moving away from those monthly comics and more towards books. So that's the news for the day as far as how IDW has performed in the last financial quarter, which ended at the end of July. How did the stock market take that news? Well, the answer is not really well. So if we look at good old Yahoo Finance and we look at IDW stock over, say, the last 18 months, they've just been dropping and dropping. This is IDW, dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. If we get to, say, the past few weeks, you see these spikes here. These spikes here are where they made the big announcements for their executive hires. And this big one in here, I believe, if I remember correctly, was where they announced Lock and Key Season 2 on Netflix. But that wasn't enough to hold it up. It was enough to give it a bump. But right after that, drop right down, drop right down, drop right down. The news that they were sort of broke even, this is today's news, gave them a little bit, but they're still sinking like a stone. You have to wonder how long shareholders are going to be interested in keeping things going if they just drop to nothing. I mean, again, let's look at the last 18 months. I mean, they've been... They're barely doing anything, and if anything, they're just continuing to drop into oblivion. The reason I keep on harping on IDW, not because I have a grudge against IDW, I don't, and I don't want anybody to fail. But when we look at the big two publishers, Marvel, and we look at DC, and we look at kind of the struggle that they've been going through, the thing that keeps coming up and up again is their corporate overlords have so much money and debt, but it doesn't make financial sense for them to keep those publishing arms making their own comics. Why not just shutter the publishing arms, hold on to the properties, and then farm the properties out to publishers who are experts and well-versed in taking properties and making comics out of that? The big name that keeps coming up and up over and over again as a company that could do that is probably top of the list, IDW. However, when you look at where IDW is right now, that's probably not the best play for them. So if Marvel and DC are both making strategic moves to shutter direct publishing or publishing in-house for their monthly comics, and they want to farm out those properties to another publisher that will, it's looking less and less likely that IDW is still at the top of the list. Who would be the next in line for that? Could be a Boom, could be a Dynamite, could be I think Black Mask might be another company that would be willing to do that. Not quite sure at this point. Those are some of the names that just pop up off the top of my list as companies that are very well versed in acquiring properties and doing the in-house publishing based on the properties, even though they don't own them. And those companies, I think, might be more stable at this point compared to IDW. So even though IDW is the bigger, broader name, it's the more well-known name, reputation-wise, financially speaking. They appear to be completely moving away from the monthly comic realm. And if we go over, I'm going to jump right over real quick, IDW Publishing, and I look at their weekly comics new this week. Let's see. Current news, trending titles. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Series, new releases, sorry. Out this week. Yeah, look, it's 1, 2, 3 Transformers titles. Okay. The Mueller Report, that's a one shot. Beauty Horror 4, that's one of those graphic novels that they said was actually doing for quite well for them, but but it's sort of different than the comic book market. Here's G.I. Joe From Hell is a reprint. Cobra Kai, that's based on the Netflix series, so that's not even anything, that's more of an adaptation more than anything else. Sonic, actually, I'm surprised to see Sonic on there. So not a lot going on here. Very, very sparse, very Spartan type of offerings. So again, IDW says they've broken even, and that's just going up in some areas and then going down in other areas. When you look at their strategic focus as far as pushing towards making the majority of their money, which they reported in their sales strategy report and their stock offering report, they were looking to do that through taking their IPs and making big Hollywood stuff like Lock and Key, like Winona Earp, like I think October Faction was another one. But Winona Earp, they can't even afford to finish the fourth season. October Faction was canceled after the first season. V-Wars canceled after the first season. Lock and Key did well season 1, but season 2 they're rushing it through when we're still sort of in a lockdown, and I've raised some questions about that in the past as well. So their entertainment division's hurting, even though that's their strategic focus. At very little, and by all accounts, they've taken heavy losses when it comes to the publishing arm of things. The only things that were doing well in publishing were stuff that were sort of more along the direct market, like March, Beauty of Horror, coloring books. These are not monthly comics. So everything says IDW is moving away from monthly comics, and the areas where they are moving towards are not financially stable definitely not at this moment, and may not be for a while. So interesting article, just trying to keep on top of what's going on with IDW. And again, the reason I stay on top of this is because if DC and Marvel and possibly Image and who knows whoever else decides to shutter their in-house publishing for monthly comics and move those properties to another publishing house that specializes in publishing monthly comics for properties that they license that are not owned by them, IDW for a long time has been touted as being top of that list. Not so much anymore. And so now the question is, who's number 2 on that list, and who's going to be the most likely successor if IDW either shutters or completely gets out of that business altogether? Food for thought, something interesting to think about. And definitely want to keep an eye on these stock prices as well, because it doesn't look good for IDW. All right, so that's all for today. I thought that was an interesting article. Wanted to stay on top of that. But let me know what you think. Is IDW making the right moves here when it comes to what they're doing with their properties? Do you think Marvel and DC are going to shutter their in-house publishing and give it to a licensee house like maybe a Boom or a Dynamite, or maybe they will try to work something out with IDW, and that'll be enough to bring them back to the monthly comics. Let me know what you think. Please link, share, subscribe, comment, give me that thumbs up. And if you think I'm off my rocker, please give me that thumbs down and tell me in the comment section why you think I'm completely off base. I want to hear your feedback. I want you to contribute to this channel. So let me hear it. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Comical Opinions, the weekly newsletter. I was off this week because I had some family stuff to take care of, but I'll be working on trying to publish something every week. Plenty of stuff, plenty of interesting long articles for you to chew on, hopefully food for thought and things to think about. And that's the opinion for the day. This is Gabe Hernandez for Comical Opinions. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and you have a great day.